Ready for a digital dive? You're listening to the GZ Chop Shop Podcast, the weekly tech and gaming media podcast that breaks down the latest news, law, and more. So plug in, because the GZ Chop Shop starts now.
What's up, GZ crew? Welcome back to another week of the GZ Chop Shop Podcast, your podcast for everything tech and gaming news, conversation related. And as always, we have an amazing episode lined up for you. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, because we're going to be talking a little bit about Sony and Microsoft, and you guys know we love to get in their ass about whatever they got into. There is something interesting. Warner's. I think you would find this fascinating. I was looking on as I was trying to find some good topics to talk about this week. And this just kind of came up on my feed. I have no idea why Google thought I would find this interesting, but they weren't wrong.
Creepy AI Google bastards.
Creepy AI Google. Do you know that there is a place in the world? There's actually two, but this one now holds the Guinness Book of World Records, where the quietest room on the face of the earth is.
Yeah, it's in the United States. I forget which state. It's
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. I know. From what I remember, I think the longest amount of time someone's been able to stand being in that room is minutes, like 15 or 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, and the max is like an hour. Because for those who don't know, this room is the human body is constantly making sounds that we don't normally hear because of all the surrounding sounds. Now, this room is set to like a negative 24 decibels. Negative 24 decibels. Basically, think of the quietest place you've ever been and then double that silence. Like how you're in a pitch black room, but the sound's off, how you can almost feel the silence. It's so unnerving that the most amount of time people can be in this room is 1 hour because they start to hear their body. They start to hear their blood rushing, their heartbeat, their bones cracking, to the point it literally becomes uncomfortably painful. Because the only time the body ceases any sound is obviously when you are dead. And I was reading the article and they were talking about there's another room that's trying to beat out this one, but the room is just so dead silent that it just is so unnerving for people to hear their body functions.
Now, I haven't looked into this, but maybe you have. Are we able to just sign up to show up and try it? Because now I bet I will break some records. I think I'm just crazy enough to gladly sit in that room and just be left the fuck alone. That's all I want is silence. I'd be so happy.
But here's the thing.
I'm not afraid of my body. I'm not afraid of death.
Silence.
It's whatever. I'd be fascinated. That's what I sound like. Jesus Christ. It'd just be me roasting myself for an hour.
Just you come out completely different, like you went in
enlightened. Come out enlightened.
But I kind of felt that way too. I was like, I for some reason think because I've heard weird sounds from my body before, like the sloshing of stomach acid sometimes, and then the throbbing of blood vessels and rushing through my head. So I'm like, let me just go in there and give my own diagnostic. Then when something sounds off because now the sound of your body. That's how my heartbeat sounds.
I just imagine me walking out of the room and people look at me and the first thing I say is, yeah, I am insane. I was in that room in dead silence for long enough. I can acknowledge now that I'm a fucking psycho. Thank you.
But I don't know. It didn't say if you could sign up, but judging from the pictures, it looks like it's kind of a touristy attraction. It's in a laboratory, so I'm pretty sure you'd have to go and sign up. Probably some waivers in case you.
I need to make a trip.
But here's
one of my trips is I want to travel and visit all the most haunted places, and I want to be alone in some of these most or maybe with one person because I'm just big. I'll admit that I'm big enough of a pussy to want one person with me in case something happens and I can throw them in front of me and run. So
nope.
Here's a sacrifice. Bye.
But, and exactly why I will not attend these things with you.
Because you're the black guy.
Yo.
Jesus.
I got to represent. We don't do that stuff voluntarily.
With a white person.
So
never go with your white friend alone to the woods or a haunted area. Jesus Christ.
But do you know who designed that room?
No, I don't know.
It's funny because you want to go to it, but it was Microsoft who built that room.
Oh my God.
Microsoft designed that room. I figured I'd wait to bring that part up. Yeah.
Do I need
one
have,
exclusive?
Do I need to have like a Game Pass to even go?
Probably. They're probably gonna ask you.
Do I need to have like
Xbox Game Pass?
Do I need to have like a yearly subscription to Office?
Yeah, probably. You got to be signed up to all their stuff. I
bet there is. You show up and you're like, "Can I sign up?" They're like, "Yeah, 15% off if you have subscriptions and these things."
Hey, do you think they use that room to convert all their fanboys, and that's why their fanboys are so loyal?
Jesus,
they just throw them in the room and then they just like program them in there, and then send them out into the world.
I need to get to this room. I need to know.
His new objective's now to burn it down.
I need to know what I'm truly capable of, and I need to know if I can break a record.
No, but that would be interesting. Like if you could go like a little bit past an hour, you would far surpass most of the people that could. That's
not good. I want to win. I want to prove that I am insane enough to deal with that room and come out unscathed.
That would be a good thing, like the end of the world kind of stuff. You're the guy that people would go like, we want him on our team. He can handle anything. But yeah. So if you guys are interested in visiting the world's quietest room, it's in Minneapolis. I think it's like Orfield Laboratories in Minneapolis.
Can you talk to yourself in the room? Like, would I be allowed to talk to myself? Because I
don't know if I would want to do that. Like, I feel like your voice would reverb.
I would make sure like everybody outside that was watching would be like, this guy's fucking like, it'd just be an hour and a half or something.
They would just see you talking though.
Me being like, no, making jokes, like talking to myself, laughing. They'd be like, this guy's a certified psychopath.
Now, here's the thing. Nobody would ever know what you said because for that room to be quiet, because it's layered in concrete, like concrete, steel, concrete, like 4 inches plus thick for each layer. So if they even had a microphone in there, even microphones give off a small frequency of sound.
You ever seen that movie Rocket Man?
Yeah.
Like that goofy ass movie from like back in the day. And they put him in that quiet room. Right. And then it's like 24 hours or something by himself, like isolation. And the video camera just shows him like John Jacob and then he's just like doing puppets and shit.
Just losing it in there.
Just fucking a whole puppet show. And like, they're like, what the fuck is wrong with him? That'd be me.
Well, guys, you know what we would do in the quiet room. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that little tidbit in because we're going to be coming back to Microsoft a little bit later in the show. But what is the main topic for today? The main topic is Sony. So for anyone who thinks like, oh my gosh, you guys always give Sony passes and stuff. No. We put Sony on the chopping block as well. And Sony's on the chopping block right now because they overestimated how much in demand their PlayStation VR was going to be with pre-orders. And it's already underperformed a lot. So they overestimated that 1 out of every 15 of their 30 million customers that bought a PS5, 30 million units were sold. They estimated that out of 1 of every 15 was going to pre-order or buy a VR. So they had set their lofty goal that it was going to be at least 2 million pre-orders by now. And it comes out this month, like the end of this month, like the 24th, I believe. And basically, they had to go back, and this is from Tech Radar, and this is a quote from Tech Radar. Now, though according to an as of yet unnamed supply partner, Sony has set a more realistic expectation of shipping 1.5 million units throughout the upcoming financial year. For context, Sony sold roughly 30 million PS5 consoles as of December 2022, suggesting Sony expected 1 in 15 PS5 owners to purchase the VR headset. Now, I'm going to tell you where Sony mainly screwed up. One, the number one issue, the VR system costs more than a PS5.
How much is it?
$549.
God damn. Is it at least claiming to be like the best VR period? Like no competition.
They can't even make that claim because there's VR that is literally the best VR period. That's like up in the thousands of dollars.
Oh, I see.
So they can't even make that claim. They could make the best console because no one else on consoles doing VR better than their predecessor. They can make that claim, maybe on par with the Oculus.
Well, here's another issue I have with Sony and the PlayStations is let's say I buy this VR. It's really good. I spend all this money on it. It's more than a PS5. Will it work on the PS6 or the PS, whatever the hell is next, Because I can at least say this about Xbox. For the most part, their older games and their older stuff tends to work on their current systems. I can at least give that to Xbox. PlayStation has a habit of saying, go fuck yourself every time you buy a new system.
And it's funny you brought that up because that's exactly what they said for this one. There's no backwards compatibility.
I'm calling a spade. That's all I'm doing here.
Yep. They said that your previous PlayStation VR games will not work, which makes me wonder, what do they have against backwards compatibility?
Nothing. Well, there's no reason. When I say nothing, there's no reason they can't do it. Xbox does it.
Yeah.
There's no reason. The only logical explanation I can come up with is that it's a money issue. That they either don't want to spend the money. I'm sure it doesn't cost that much because fucking Xbox does it. And they want to get money out of you with these fucking tier systems that don't even have all of the games that you'd probably want to play. They just have a handful of what people might say is the most popular older games.
Yeah, because when I was looking, I said, okay, well, first of all, the price is off. I said, you got the people that barely are getting their hands on a PS5 spending hundreds of dollars. And then you want to roll around and drop an accessory that requires you to have a PlayStation in the first place that costs more than your core system.
That is a whole dedication specifically to PlayStation.
That's a whole dedication. And my thing is, I'm like, okay, a lot of people probably have no problem. Let's just say there's people out here, they'll come out, they'll drop their $549 and get their PlayStation VR. Then you don't have backwards compatibility. So you got to buy brand new games all over again. You're basically starting over.
Yeah. Sony's going to shoot themselves in the foot down the road with this whole like exclusive stuff. Like the exclusive games I get. Okay. Like I get that. They have a lot of exclusives that were there from the like PlayStation 1, 2, and 3. And they're known for their exclusives. Xbox is kind of catching up in that area. They do have exclusives, but nowhere near as many. Matter of fact, that's been a point of argument between the two companies and lawsuits and shit. But I feel like they're going to shoot themselves in the foot down the road with not being a little bit more flexible with the ever-changing world of the gaming industry and the future. And the future of the gaming industry really is going to have to be a little bit of flexibility so that you can use at least some of your equipment like interchangeably. Obviously not the controllers. I get that. Not the games. Obviously I get that, but you got to be a little flexible for your customers. You can't force people to only buy specific things that expensive specifically for their console. And then that's it. And then expect to make sales.
I think Sony is, and speaking on the controller thing, Sony also just recently dropped their DualSense Edge controller, $200.
Is it similar to like the Xbox Elite controller? Because when I did have an Xbox, I did love that Elite controller when it first came out. That thing was so awesome.
Now I will give credit where credit is due. I did purchase a DualSense Edge, so I can speak on it. I've had a couple of days with it, and it is a phenomenal controller.
How would you compare it to the Xbox Elite controller?
I definitely like it better.
Is it comparable, or is
it's definitely comparable? Now, granted, I will give Microsoft leeway that they dropped the Elite years ago, so it's older now. So there haven't been, many updates.
Well, they came out the Elite 2, which I mean, let's be honest, like it's not much different.
It's not much.
It's a little sleeker. That's really it. The concept's the same.
But I will say the DualSense Edge, I do feel if you don't want to drop $200 up front, you can do like Klarna, because you can't get it at a third party store yet. You have to get it through Sony, but they do have Klarna, so you could break it up in payments if you don't want to drop $200 up front. But I do think if you're heavy in the game, especially on PlayStation, it is a worthwhile controller. It's has on-the-fly customization, which I love. Like mid-game of Call of Duty, I can switch up profiles. It has its own application in the PlayStation to customize the buttons, so there's no memorizing like the classic shooter controllers where it's like, oh, remap your controllers, but you pretty much had to memorize how you mapped everything. And usually you set it for one game and just left it alone because you were like, I don't even remember how to remap my controls, so I'm just going to leave it alone. But with the DualSense Edge, it's very detailed down to like how you want your joysticks to respond with what profile. And I used it with Call of Duty, and I do have to say I felt a lot better with how I was playing than when I was using my normal controller, because I set my joystick on the right to precise and my joystick on the left to dynamic. And it was a very good feeling. I could, the paddles, it does what it says it's
the most competitive thing that gaming has done is, and Xbox led the way with this, is the ability to set up your analog controls to sensitivity and like very specifics, so that like now that with crossplay, I don't think people realized how on par that made controllers against PC players.
Because there was no contest.
Crossplay. There was no contest. There was zero contest.
There was zero contest.
And that was even against like your average PC player. Because let's be honest, your average PC player is no better or worse than your average console player. But keyboard and mouse is still it's more accurate. It's better. It's just immersive. It's so many things about it that do make it better. And when they introduced that Xbox Elite controller and what you can do with the analog sticks, that was a game changer. And when we got crossplay to where it is now over the past couple of years, where it really exploded, I really don't want to hear anyone complaining about, oh, well, PC players, like, no, like get one of those controllers and figure it out and like get the details of that thing down, learn it, because it will help you dramatically and it will close that gap.
Yeah.
Almost completely.
Yeah. And there's definitely there is a learning curve to it. It's not just one you just set up and you're like, all right, I should be good. I should be, God tier in the game. No, you got to set it up, because what you think would work first might not work. And then you realize how you really play. But all in all, I do think it's a good controller. I've had a lot of fun with it. The problem is its battery life wirelessly is not great.
And I will say this too, Sony cords for the between the controller and the console are not known to have, very much length to them.
Well, this one does. They gave some pretty generous length to this one, and I'm like, they better have. They gave some generous length to it. Thanks for ruining that.
They gave some genital length to it. Jesus Christ. Yikes.
Anyway, it's a good size. It also has this locking mechanism so that it doesn't accidentally pop out. So you can like make sure it stays in there. This whole thing
not making it better.
This whole thing, like, I feel like the rest of this conversation is just going to be a lot of that's what she said afterwards. Just,
I'll stop.
Good controller, guys. Good controller. But what I was going to get at is Sony is all about keeping things in their ecosystem. They have, as I like to call it, the only child syndrome, where as you grow up as an only child, you're not used to sharing. you'd rather help someone get their own than share yours. I was actually talking to my girlfriend, and she was talking about, like, hey, we could play your Nintendo Switch, and I could put some stickers on it, I could bedazzle it. And then I got real quiet, and she was like, hello? And I was like, or we could get you your own. And she was like, but that defeats the purpose. I was like, no, we can still play together.
No, it doesn't. You get your own controller, and you get to put stickers all over that.
All over yours.
You're putting stickers on my shit.
But she has a brother, so she grew up knowing, like, what sharing was about. And I'm like, I grew up as an only child. I got my own, and I didn't share because no one ever returns stuff to you the way you loan it out.
That's true.
Especially those that grew up with secondhand, because they're used to getting beat up stuff. So they don't even notice that they're returning something to you beat up. That one little scratch, that one little part missing. It's not a big deal to them because they got stuff that was
interest rates to people coming back with scratches on shit.
So I told her, I was like, yeah, we could get you your own. And she was like, yeah, that's that only child syndrome. And I'm like, yeah. And that's Sony. They don't, like, Microsoft right now is in the phase of open cloud, open this, share. We to the world where, Sony is like, no, we want everything in our ecosystem. And that's how we like it. Our exclusives, our accessories, our everything. Boom. And that's going to hurt them 100%. That's 100% going to hurt them. It's already hurting them. But I think they're trying to take a page out of Nintendo and Apple's book because they're the same way, but they're thriving.
That's a totally different situation, though. Like, it's not gaming. It's.
But Nintendo is.
When I think Apple, I think computers or phones. When I think Microsoft, I generally think the same thing. I don't put, when I think Microsoft, I think Xbox is completely separately than PC or computers and phones, because they are pretty expanded. So I kind of separate those things. Sony, I don't know Sony for their phones. Maybe they have phones. I'm sure they do, but when's the last time someone's like, hey, check out my new Sony, what the fuck,
Yeah, that's true. Like, yeah, Sony phones are very, very
I know niche. They had Sony phones in Japan because I had one. And they were dope as shit at the time. They had like little antennas and stuff on it. God, I'm old. And I remember I was like, they had an antenna on it, and I could turn the thing sideways and watch TV. I was like, this is really cool. It was right before the Apple dropped that iPhone 3G, the first one. And then it was game over for everything else.
Well, speaking of things having value, just dropping in here a little plug for us. Have you guys visited the GZshop.com? If not, you need to go check it out. Our store is packed with tons of items and apparel that make the perfect gifts or additions to your own clothing and homeware collection. Everything in our store is both comfortable and stylish. So make sure to visit thegzshop.com today and use promo code GZCrew to save 10% off your order for being a valued listener. We really appreciate it. It helps support the show, and you guys get to get some amazing swag. So go check it out. I promise you, it's totally worth it. And if you're a Patreon, free shipping for life. So make sure to check that out as well. Patreon.com/OSN Media. Get yourself some free shipping for life. But the last topic, and not really a big surprise, Microsoft is raising their prices on their consoles now overseas. Now, that's no big surprise. They've already said they were going to raise prices. But what was interesting was Byrne and I were crunching the numbers, and I implore everyone to go do the research on this yourselves. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, the value of this and the value of that, it's all completely different, blah, blah, blah. Money is numbers. And if the numbers are the same globally, I've always thought that the value of money here and there because of X and Y made absolutely no sense to me. Why is this piece of paper valued more than this piece of paper?
That's a whole rabbit hole I'm not going to get into.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into
my
here.
feelings about the illusion of the world economy. It's all a lie.
But the thing that stuck out to me was how much of a difference is being charged. So they're charging about 5,000 yen to raise the price of the Xbox Series X. And I'll read this, and this is from Tech Radar as well. A price hike of 5,000 yen across both Microsoft consoles is set to come in effect next month. That's the equivalent of $38.33. And then it goes into euros and Australian. This will raise the suggested retail price of the Xbox Series X from 54,978 yen to 59,978, while the Xbox Series S will rise from 32,278 yen to 37,978 yen, now costing for the Series X $459.67, translated into American. Now, here's what I want you to process. How much is an Xbox Series X for us? Do you know?
No, I don't have an Xbox.
It's $499.
Okay. So the argument here for me is, okay, someone could be like, oh, well, shipping costs and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. But doesn't everyone also argue that because we make all our shit overseas and overseas labor and businesses, that therefore it's cheaper and we're saving money? So when it comes here, why the fuck is it so expensive then?
My issue is why
none of it makes sense. Make it make sense.
Why is the American company, maybe the Xbox fanboys can answer this one, why is your favorite American company charging you more than overseas? Which, it doesn't matter. Well, if you break it down.
No, you break it down. I am breaking it down for you. Whether the shit's made overseas and delivered here, and you argue it's more expensive, how? If everyone's arguing that it's inexpensive, therefore that's why businesses make shit overseas because it's cheaper, and then they bring it here versus making it here because it would be quote unquote more expensive to make it here for businesses. That makes no fucking sense. Whether it's here to there or there to here, the argument destroys itself. Whichever direction you go, it makes no sense. So I'd love to see someone's math. And
the difference between the yen and the American dollar is not as great as people probably think it is.
No, it's not.
It's like less than $1.
It is. I remember when we were there, it was pretty common for about 100 yen to be roughly $1. It'd be somewhere between 97 cents to 100 yen to like $1.07 or so to 100 yen. And I mean, it would go in either direction. Usually it was a little higher, but that was about what it is. It was fairly close.
Yeah. And there was a point when we were over there too, where for like a couple of months, it was a good while where I think it was 2012, where the yen was valued at more for a bit. That when I used to go to the ATM, it was almost a steal. I was getting so much yen for a few, couple dollars, to where it was a point where I had to actually pinch money because I was spending more to get like just 100 yen because our value had dropped. It was like $1.05 for 100 yen for a little bit. It was like, I remember because I was still making like E3 pay. So it was noticeable when it hit. So the difference between yen and the dollar is not that great. And I'm also looking at it like, okay, and here's where it's weird. They charge us, our American company charges us more for the main system and charges more for the Series S overseas.
It's all a lie.
So, and the numbers are there.
It all comes down to who's buying which one more in what country. So that's the one that's going to be more expensive than the other one.
I'm just saying, fanboys, answer that one.
Because nobody's selling anything in any country for less than we're getting it for, or we're getting it less for someone else out of the goodness of their heart.
And don't forget electronic taxes and then your state tax on top of that before you can even walk out the door with the system.
And that's another thing is Japan includes all taxes whenever you go shopping. So whenever you're buying, it doesn't matter if it's groceries, a fucking car. It does not matter what you buy in Japan. The price that you see, everything's already included in that price. So there's no math involved. Yep. Kind of like how we're the only country that the government doesn't tell us how much taxes we owe. We have to figure it ourselves. And if we get it wrong, we go to prison. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
So we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Definitely a rabbit hole, a little cliffhanger to leave you guys on.
Bunch of bullshit.
So hit us up on our website, osntachmedia.com. Go to the show page, click the GZ Chop Shop podcast. And at the very top, you can submit your thoughts to us and we might read them on a future episode or just answer it if you have a question. Or if you have some insight to let us know, like, hey, what's going on behind the scenes. We would definitely love to hear from you guys. So make sure to check that out as well. Anyway, that's all for this week's episode. You guys have been amazing. Stay safe out there. And we will catch all of you on the next podcast. Later.